Good morning, students. Today we are going to see something about how to write a journal article review, a quick student guide. Welcome to this class on English technical writing. To begin with, let me define what is a journal article review. A journal article review is an essential academic activity that trains students and researchers to engage with scholarly literature in a systematic and analytical manner. Unlike casual reading, the purpose of reviewing an article is to assess its scientific merit, clarity, and contribution to its field. A review demonstrates how well the reader understands research methods, theoretical frameworks, and the overall structure of academic writing. It also helps critical thinking, interpretation, and academic communication skills necessary for higher education and research. A journal article review can be described as a critical evaluation of a published research article. This means that the reviewer does not merely retell what the author has written, but analyzes the depth, accuracy, and originality of the work. The review summarizes the major ideas, comments on the author's approach, and evaluates the strengths and limitations of the study. Through this, the reviewer gains insight into how research problems are framed, how methodologies are chosen, and how data is interpreted. Now, let us move on to the next slide, which is nothing but the purpose of a review. And the purpose of a review is multi-layered. First, it allows the reviewer to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the study. This includes evaluating whether the research question is meaningful, whether the theoretical background is sufficient, and whether the methods used are appropriate for the study. Secondly, a review helps to assess the contribution of the article to its academic field. A well-written article adds new knowledge, challenges existing frameworks, or provides fresh insights. Thirdly, a review determines the theoretical and methodological soundness of the research. This involves examining whether the author's conclusions are supported by evidence and whether the study follows established research conventions. By reviewing scholarly articles, students, you have the opportunity to learn how to evaluate research, but also how to write your own papers using correct academic standards. This process will definitely help you to strengthen your analytical thinking, improve your academic writing, and foster your deeper understanding of the research culture within academia. The first step in reviewing an article is to read it critically. Critical reading requires the reviewer to do much more than simply read the article from beginning to end. It involves questioning each section, identifying the central thesis, and understanding how the author builds arguments. The reviewer should examine the research question carefully. Is it clearly stated? Does it address a real gap in the literature? The methodology is another key area to focus on. The reviewer must understand what type of research design was used, whether it was qualitative, quantitative, or mixed, and why it was selected. Attention should also be given to sampling methods, data collection tools, and analytical techniques. And during the first reading, it is helpful for you students to highlight the important points. You have to note down the recurring concepts in that particular journal article, and you have to mark any gaps or unclear arguments. This process will definitely help you to lay the foundation for writing an accurate summary and a fair critique. Critical reading also helps you to avoid misinterpretation and ensures that evaluative comments are based on evidence rather than personal opinion. Now, moving on to step 2, you have to identify the key components. After critically reading the article, you students should identify the key components of the article as your reviewer. Academic articles usually follow a clear structure divided into sections such as the title, abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. Each part plays a specific role in the overall presentation of the research. The title and abstract provide a quick overview of the study's focus. The introduction sets the research problem, explains the context, and establishes the need for the study. The literature review shows how the study is connected to previous research and identifies the gaps. the study aims to fill. Next, the methodology section. It describes how the research was conducted, ensuring the process is transparent and reproducible. And the results section presents findings in an organized and objective manner. The discussion interprets those findings and relates them back to the research question. The conclusion summarizes the contribution of the study and may suggest future research directions. So you have to be very careful when you are identifying the key components, for this will definitely help you to recognize the basic structure of the study, and it will help you to evaluate whether the article is well structured, coherent, and academically sound. And the next step is to summarize the article. A good summary is concise, accurate, and objective. It includes the purpose of the study, the methods used, and the major findings. Importantly, the summary should not contain personal opinions or judgments. So you have to be very careful in this. You should not include any personal opinion or your own judgment. It should reflect only what the author has stated. This is very, very important because the summary forms the foundation for the entire review. And if the summary is inaccurate, the evaluation will also be flawed. And you have to be very careful in noting this in this step, that is, you should not include personal opinions here. And now moving on to step 4. After presenting a clear and neutral summary, you have to move on to the evaluation phase. You have to evaluate the article. Evaluation or critique is the central component of any article review. This section is where you are going to analyze the article's strengths, weakness, and overall effectiveness. Some of the guiding questions which you can include in this particular section are the arguments logical and well supported? The next question is the evidence strong, relevant, and convincing? The third question is, are the methods appropriate for answering the research question? And fourthly, does the sample represent the population effectively? And finally, you have to be very careful if there are any biases or limitations in the study. So you have to evaluate the article by checking whether the arguments are logical and whether the evidence is strong, whether the methods are appropriate, and what are the strengths and limitations, because this will help you to evaluate the article in a very impartial manner. And moving on to step 5, the next thing is you have to write down the review. So you should consider the theoretical contribution of the article. Does the study extend existing research, challenge previous assumptions, or offer new perspectives? And when you are writing the introduction, first of all, you have to follow a very clear structure. So the introduction typically includes the article, that is, bibliographic details such as title, author, publication year, and journal name. And a brief statement about the purpose of the review is very important here. And you have to be very careful in writing this particular step, as it will provide a curtain riser to the review which you are going to write. And next we move on to the summary section. The summary section follows presenting the central ideas without interpretation. Next, we move on to the critique section, which forms the largest portion of the review, where the reviewer analyzes methodology, findings, and theoretical contributions. Finally, the conclusion provides an overall judgment of the study's quality and significance. It sometimes offers suggestions for improvement or future research. And with this, it will be very useful if you follow the writing tips which goes with any article. always you have to use a formal academic tone, and you have to support claims with the examples from the article. Do not use excessive quotation, and you have to maintain clarity and coherence throughout, because effective writing is a vital part of your review process. And we emphasize that using a formal academic tone will definitely help you to avoid, that is, avoid unnecessary things which are not included in that particular journal article. And you have to ensure that your writing reflects independent thinking rather than dependency on the author's words. And before submitting the review, several final checks need to be incorporated. The reviewer should proofread for grammar and coherence, and you have to ensure balance between summary and critic, and you have to confirm with the proper citation style which has been used by the author, that is whether it is APA or MLA or Chicago. So this, when you follow these tips and final checks, then your review will definitely help you to rise in your research career. And by following the steps outlined in the PPT, that is reading critically, identifying key concepts, summarizing, evaluating, and organizing the review effectively, you can produce high quality and insightful reviews that will demonstrate your rigorous academic engagement. Thank you for listening to this video.